Marcus Richardson, the prestigious lawyer, looked at his morning visitor and said, "We don't have clients like you," and slammed the door in his face. However, 3 hours later, when he turned on the television, he learned who that client was and nearly had a heart attack. Because the man he threw out was Keir Starmer. In the heart of London, among the dazzling skyscrapers of Canary Wharf, Richardson and Associates law firm was located on the 23rd floor. This office was an elite establishment that served only wealthy clients, charged £500 per hour, and never accepted ordinary people. The firm's reputation was built on exclusivity. They handled cases only for Fortune 500 companies, aristocratic families, and A-list celebrities. Marcus Richardson, 48 years old, Oxford graduate, was one of London's most prestigious barristers. Known for his expensive Italian suits, Swiss watches, and nose-in-the-air attitude, Richardson carefully selected his clients. His office walls were adorned with photographs of him shaking hands with prime ministers, business magnates, and royalty. He had built his career on the principle that only the best deserve the best. Richardson's journey to the top hadn't been easy. Born into a middle-class family in Birmingham, he had worked tirelessly to shed his working-class accent and mannerisms. He had studied at Oxford on a scholarship, spending years perfecting his upper-class facade. Now, ironically, he looked down upon people who reminded him of his own humble origins. That Tuesday morning, Richardson had arrived at his office early as usual, reviewing the day's schedule while enjoying his Jameson whiskey. His secretary, Angela Whitfield, had started the day by preparing her boss's coffee, as she always did. Angela, 52, had been Richardson's secretary for 15 years and knew well his rigidity in client selection. She had witnessed countless potential clients being turned away simply because they didn't meet Richardson's standards.
"Mr. Richardson," said Angela, handing over the coffee in a fine bone china cup. "Today at 10 you have Lord Hamilton's son regarding his inheritance dispute. At 11, the CEO of Pemberton Holdings for their acquisition deal. This afternoon, Lady Catherine Worthington wants to discuss her divorce settlement." Richardson nodded approvingly as he scanned through the leather-bound appointment book. "Perfect. Remember, Angela, only quality clients. We maintain our standards. We have no room for ordinary people among us. That's what separates us from those high street solicitors." The morning started perfectly. Richardson's first client, Lord Hamilton's son Timothy, arrived in a chauffeur-driven Bentley. The inheritance dispute involved £50 million, ensuring Richardson's firm would receive a substantial fee. The meeting went smoothly, with Richardson displaying his expertise in aristocratic legal matters. At exactly 09:45, during a brief break between appointments, the office door was knocked. Angela went to the door and opened it to find a middle-aged, casually dressed man standing there. He wore an ordinary navy jacket that looked like it came from a high street store, simple dark trousers, and brown leather shoes that showed signs of regular use. Most importantly, he showed no signs of luxury. No expensive watch, no designer briefcase, no aura of wealth that Richardson's typical clients possessed. "Hello," the man said, in a calm, measured voice. "Keir Starmer. I'd like to get legal consultation on a matter." Angela looked the man up and down, her trained eye immediately categorizing him as not our type. No expensive clothes, no valuable accessories, no luxury car visible through the window. This was clearly someone who didn't fit the office's carefully curated client profile. "Do you have an appointment, Mr.?" Angela asked, deliberately pausing to emphasize his apparent lack of importance. "Starmer. Keir Starmer. No, I don't have an appointment, but it's an urgent matter concerning legal representation, if possible."
"I'm sorry, sir," Angela interrupted, her tone becoming noticeably cooler. "We don't do consultations without appointments. Also, She hesitated, glancing toward Richardson's office. Our hourly rates are quite high. Perhaps another firm might be more suitable for your circumstances. Starmer smiled patiently. This wasn't an unfamiliar reaction to him. Throughout his legal career, before entering politics, he had encountered such class-based discrimination numerous times. Cost isn't a problem. I just want to speak with someone for a few minutes about a legal matter. Angela's eyebrows rose skeptically. She looked toward Richardson's office, where her boss was watching this conversation from behind the glass wall with furrowed brows. Richardson's expression showed clear displeasure at this interruption to his exclusive environment. Richardson stood up from his mahogany desk, adjusting his 2,000-pound Savile Row suit jacket, and strode out with the confident gait of someone accustomed to commanding respect. His office, visible through the glass partition, was a testament to his success. Persian rugs, antique furniture, and walls lined with law books and awards. "What's the problem here, Angela?" Richardson asked without even glancing at Starmer, treating him as if he were invisible. "This gentleman wants consultation, sir, but he doesn't have an appointment and—" Angela's voice trailed off, hoping her boss would understand the unspoken message. Richardson finally looked at Starmer with the expression of someone examining an unwelcome insect. He took in the casual clothes, the unremarkable appearance, and the complete absence of any status symbols. His expression shifted to one of barely concealed disdain. "Your name?" he asked curtly, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to immediate deference. "Keir Starmer."
Richardson didn't recognize the name, which only confirmed his assumption that this was nobody important. He wasn't very interested in the political world, focusing only on his elite circle of corporate law and high society connections. "Mr. Starmer, we work with a very specific client profile here. There are more accessible law firms that would be suitable for your situation." Starmer tried to remain calm, though he could feel his patience being tested. "What situation are you referring to exactly?" Richardson's eyes performed another dismissive scan of Starmer's attire. "Look, Mr. Starmer, we only work with serious clients here. High net worth individuals, major corporations, people of substance. People like you." He paused, choosing his words with deliberate condescension. "We simply don't serve people below a certain economic level. It's nothing personal, you understand, just business." Angela shifted uncomfortably behind the reception desk. She had witnessed this scene many times before, but something about Richardson's particularly harsh tone today made her uneasy. However, she had learned long ago not to contradict her boss. "Sir," Starmer said with remarkable patience, "I just want legal consultation. Regarding the fee structure—" "Mr. Starmer," Richardson interrupted with a theatrical sigh, "I think I understand your situation, but our hourly rate here is £500. Our retainer starts at £10,000. I very much doubt you can afford that level of investment." Several other staff members had begun to notice the commotion. Junior associates and paralegals were glancing over from their desks, some whispering among themselves about the unusual scene unfolding in their exclusive environment. Starmer's patience was beginning to wear thin, but he maintained his composure. "What if I assured you that fee wouldn't be an issue?" Richardson let out a condescending laugh that echoed through the office. "Mr. Starmer, with all due respect, look at yourself. Your clothes, your appearance. Let's be realistic here. Perhaps there are legal aid offices that would be more appropriate for someone in your circumstances. The lawyers there are more accustomed to working with people in your situation." These words hit Starmer like a physical blow. The discrimination wasn't subtle. It was blatant, cruel, and representative of everything wrong with Britain's justice system. But this wasn't just about him. It was about thousands of ordinary citizens who faced this same treatment every day.
"So you're categorically refusing to provide me with legal services?" Starmer asked, his voice remaining steady despite his growing anger. "That's exactly what I'm saying," Richardson replied with finality. "We don't have clients like you, Mr. Starmer. This is a premier establishment. Our reputation depends on maintaining certain standards." Richardson turned to Angela. "Angela, would you please escort this gentleman to the exit? I have important clients arriving shortly." The humiliation was complete. Other staff members watched as Angela reluctantly directed Starmer toward the door. The silence in the office was deafening. Everyone could sense the tension, but nobody dared to speak up. As Starmer walked toward the exit, he turned back one final time. "Are you absolutely certain about this decision, Mr. Richardson?" "Completely certain," Richardson replied without hesitation. "Good day to you." The heavy glass door closed behind Starmer with a decisive click. Richardson adjusted his tie, straightened his shoulders, and returned to his office as if nothing significant had occurred. The incident was already forgotten in his mind, just another undesirable turned away from his exclusive establishment. However, the moment Starmer stepped onto the busy Canary Wharf street, he took out his mobile phone and called Sarah Mitchell, Labour Party's communications director. "Sarah, it's Keir. I'm currently at Canary Wharf and I want to document an experience I just had that perfectly illustrates the problems with access to justice in this country." Back in the office, Richardson had seamlessly returned to his routine. He spent the rest of the morning in productive meetings with his high-profile clients: Lord Hamilton's son's tax avoidance strategies, Pemberton Holdings' complex merger negotiations, and Lady Catherine's £20 million divorce settlement. Each case represented the kind of lucrative, prestigious work that had built his reputation.
At lunch, Richardson dined at the exclusive Shard restaurant with media magnate Jonathan Hardwell, one of his most valuable clients. Over expensive wines and a meal that cost more than many people's weekly salary, they discussed future business opportunities and laughed about the morning's amusing incident with the unsuitably dressed visitor. "Marcus," Hardwell had said, raising his glass of vintage Bordeaux, "that's exactly why I come to you. You maintain standards. You don't dilute your practice with riffraff." Richardson had completely forgotten about Starmer by the time he returned to his office at 15:30 that afternoon. His head was full of billion-pound deals and aristocratic legal challenges. The morning's interruption had been dismissed from his mind entirely. But Angela was waiting for him with an expression of barely controlled panic. "Mr. Richardson," she said, her voice trembling slightly, "we need to talk. Immediately." "What's wrong, Angela? You look like you've seen a ghost." "Sir, that man this morning, the one we turned away. What about him? That ordinary fellow? What was his name? Starmer something?" Angela's hands were visibly shaking as she held the office remote control. "Sir, that man was Keir Starmer. The Keir Starmer." Richardson frowned, still not grasping the significance. "I'm sorry, who exactly?" "The leader of the Labour Party, the shadow prime minister, one of the most powerful politicians in Britain." The words hit Richardson like a sledgehammer. The color drained from his face as the full implications began to dawn on him. That's not possible," he whispered. Angela turned on the large flat-screen television mounted on the office wall. BBC News was broadcasting, and the headline banner read in large, urgent letters, "Keir Starmer exposes legal discrimination in London." Starmer's familiar voice filled the stunned silence of the office. "This morning, I visited what many would consider a prestigious law firm in London seeking basic legal consultation. However, I was refused service entirely based on my appearance and perceived economic status. This experience perfectly illustrates how Britain's justice system has become a two-tiered system, one for the wealthy and another for everyone else." Richardson felt as though the floor was disappearing beneath his feet.
The man on the television screen was unmistakably the same person he had so contemptuously dismissed just hours earlier. The BBC reporter pressed for details. "Mr. Starmer, can you tell us which law firm this was?" "Richardson and Associates, located at Canary Wharf. The senior partner, Marcus Richardson, specifically told me they don't have clients like me, and that I should seek help from legal aid offices because people in my situation weren't welcome at his establishment." Richardson's legs gave out, and he collapsed into his leather chair. His name, his firm's name, was being broadcast across the nation in the most damaging context possible. Starmer continued on television. "Mr. Richardson judged me entirely on my appearance, my clothes, my lack of obvious wealth indicators. He assumed I couldn't afford his services and treated me with open contempt. This isn't about me personally. I can afford any lawyer in London. This is about the thousands of ordinary British citizens who face this same discrimination every single day." The news program cut to street interviews. Ordinary people were sharing their own stories of being turned away from law firms, of being treated as second-class citizens by the justice system. Social media was exploding with anger and support for Starmer's experience. Richardson's hands were shaking uncontrollably. Angela stood frozen, watching her boss's career implode in real time. This is catastrophic," Richardson managed to whisper.
Within minutes, Richardson's phone began ringing incessantly. The first call was from Jonathan Hartwell, the media mogul who had been enjoying lunch with him just hours earlier. "Marcus!" Hartwell screamed through the phone so loudly that Angela could hear every word. "What in God's name have you done? My entire media empire is covering this story. I cannot have my business associated with this kind of scandal." "Jonathan, please, let me explain. This is all a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding? The man mentioned your name specifically on national television. He quoted your exact words. This isn't a misunderstanding. This is a disaster." The line went dead. Before Richardson could catch his breath, the phone rang again and again. Client after client, each more furious than the last. Lady Catherine Worthington's voice was ice cold. "Marcus, my family's reputation cannot be associated with this kind of scandal. We're terminating our arrangement immediately." The CEO of Pemberton Holdings was equally brutal. "Richardson, you've just cost yourself our entire account. We can't be associated with this kind of discrimination." By 4 p.m., the situation had spiraled completely out of control. The story had been picked up by every major news outlet in Britain. Sky News was running it as their lead story. The Guardian had published an editorial about discrimination in legal services. The hashtag Richardson discrimination was trending #1 on Twitter with over 100,000 tweets. Richardson sat in his office, watching his professional world collapse in real time. 30 years of building his reputation gone in a single afternoon. The evening news made everything exponentially worse. ITV, Channel 4, BBC, every channel was covering the story. "Elite law firm discriminates against labor leader" dominated the headlines. Footage of Richardson's building was being shown repeatedly, with reporters standing outside describing the shocking discrimination that had occurred. Legal experts were being interviewed, all condemning Richardson's actions. Sir Geoffrey Brennan, a respected QC, appeared on Newsnight. "This behavior is not only morally reprehensible, but potentially grounds for disciplinary action by the Bar Association. No one should be denied legal services based on their appearance or perceived economic status." Richardson drove home that evening in a daze. His wife Margaret met him at the door, her face pale with concern. "Marcus, what on earth is happening? The phone hasn't stopped ringing. My friends have been calling all day asking if it's really true. The neighbors are talking. Even Mrs. Henderson from next door asked if you're the lawyer who discriminated against the labor leader." Richardson slumped into his armchair, suddenly looking far older than his 48 years. "Margaret, I think I've just destroyed everything we've built." "But Marcus, surely there's been some mistake.
You wouldn't really turn someone away just because of how they looked, would you? The question hung in the air like an accusation. Richardson realized that even his own wife was struggling to reconcile the man she knew with the actions being reported. The next morning brought no relief. Richardson woke to find journalists and camera crews camped outside his house. The moment he stepped outside, microphones were thrust toward him and questions bombarded him from all directions. Mr. Richardson, how do you justify discriminating against the labor leader? What do you say to accusations that your firm operates a discriminatory practice? Do you believe justice should only be available to the wealthy? Will you be apologizing to Mr. Starmer? Richardson pushed through the crowd without comment, his face a mask of grim determination, but inside, he was crumbling. At the office, the situation was even worse. Protesters had gathered outside the building carrying signs reading, "Justice for all" and "End legal elitism." The building's security had to escort Richardson through a back entrance. Angela greeted him with a stack of termination letters. "Sir, we've lost 15 major clients overnight. The Hartwell Group, Pemberton Holdings, the Worthington Family Trust, they've all terminated their contracts."
How many clients do we have left? 3, sir. And 2 of them have requested meetings to reassess their relationship with the firm. Richardson's business partner, James Harrison, was waiting in the conference room with the other senior partners. Their faces told the story before anyone spoke. "Marcus," James began solemnly, "we've been partners for 12 years. We've built this firm together. But this situation is untenable. James, surely we can weather this storm. It will blow over." "No, it won't," interrupted senior partner Elizabeth Carmichael. "The Bar Association has opened a formal investigation. The Law Society is reviewing our practices. Our professional indemnity insurance company is threatening to drop us." James continued, "Marcus, we've taken a vote. We're asking you to resign from the partnership." The words hit Richardson like physical blows. You're forcing me out?" "We don't want to," Elizabeth said softly, "but we have no choice. This isn't just about one incident anymore. This has become about the fundamental values of our profession." That evening, Richardson sat alone in his study, staring at the resignation letter he had just signed. Everything he had worked for, everything he had built, was gone. A knock at the door interrupted his misery. Margaret answered it and returned with a young woman in her 30s. "Mr. Richardson, my name is Emma Watson. I'm a journalist with the Times. I'd like to offer you an opportunity. I'm not interested in speaking to any journalists. This would be different. An opportunity for redemption, a chance to make this right." Richardson looked up for the first time. "What kind of opportunity?" "Keir Starmer has agreed to meet with you, on television, a public conversation about what happened and what it means for access to justice in Britain." Richardson hesitated. His first instinct was to refuse, to hide, to let this nightmare pass. But then he thought about what he had lost, what he had thrown away through his own prejudice and stupidity.
What would be expected of me? Honesty, accountability, and perhaps an apology. 3 days later, Richardson found himself in a BBC studio, sitting across from Keir Starmer under the bright television lights. The program was Panorama, BBC's flagship investigative show, and millions would be watching. The presenter, Emily Maitlis, introduced the segment. Tonight, we bring together 2 men whose encounter has sparked a national conversation about discrimination and access to justice in modern Britain. Richardson's hands were shaking slightly as he faced the cameras. This was either his chance at redemption or his final public humiliation. "Mr. Richardson," Maitlis began, "let's start with you. What happened that Tuesday morning?" Richardson took a deep breath. Everything depended on the next few minutes. "Mr. Starmer," he began, looking directly at the man he had so cruelly dismissed, I want to begin by offering you a full and unreserved apology. What I did that morning was wrong on every level. I judged you based solely on your appearance, made assumptions about your economic status, and treated you with contempt that no human being deserves. Starmer listened intently, his expression neutral but attentive. Richardson continued, his voice growing stronger with conviction. But this isn't really about you, is it? You're a successful QC, a party leader, someone who can afford any legal services you need. This is about the thousands of ordinary people who face this same discrimination every day. People who genuinely need legal help, but are turned away because they don't look wealthy enough, or speak with the right accent, or carry the right symbols of status. Why did you do it? Mateless asked directly. Why did you treat Mr. Starmer that way? Richardson was quiet for a long moment, clearly struggling with the answer. Because I had created a world where I only valued people based on their wealth and status. I had become everything I once despised. You see, I grew up in Birmingham, in a working-class family. My father was a factory worker. I studied at Oxford on scholarship, and I spent years trying to erase every trace of my background.
The admission was clearly painful. I think I saw something of my younger self in every person I turned away, and I rejected them because I had rejected that part of myself. Starmer spoke for the first time. Mr. Richardson, I appreciate your honesty and your apology, but what matters now is what we do next. How do we change a system that allows this kind of discrimination to happen routinely? I've been thinking about that, Richardson replied. I want to start over. I want to create a new kind of legal practice, one that serves everyone, regardless of their economic status or background. How would that work? Mateless asked. Equal Justice Legal Services, Richardson said, a firm that operates on a sliding scale. Wealthy clients pay full rates, which subsidizes free or reduced-cost services for those who can't afford legal help. No one is turned away based on their appearance or perceived ability to pay. Starmer looked genuinely surprised. You're serious about this? Completely serious. I've already secured initial funding. I've been in touch with several legal aid charities. This isn't just words. This is my commitment to making amends for what I've done. The program aired to an audience of over 8 million viewers. Public reaction was mixed, but largely positive toward Richardson's apparent transformation. The hashtag Second Chances began trending alongside continued criticism. True to his word, Richardson did establish Equal Justice Legal Services. His first client was Maria Santos, a single mother facing eviction who had been turned away by 3 other law firms. Mr. Richardson, Maria had said, clutching her eviction notice, I heard about what you're doing now. I heard you help people like me. Maria, I help people, period. And we're going to fight this eviction. 6 months later, Richardson's new firm had handled over 200 cases, providing free legal services to those who couldn't afford them, while maintaining a small number of paying clients to keep the practice sustainable. When Starmer visited the new offices, he found a completely different environment from the exclusive Canary Wharf establishment. The waiting room was filled with people from all walks of life, immigrants seeking citizenship help, workers fighting unfair dismissals, tenants battling landlords. Keir, Richardson said, showing him around the busy office, you know what the strangest thing is? This work, helping ordinary people with real problems. It's the most fulfilling legal work I've ever done. Marcus, you didn't just apologize for what you did. You completely changed your life's direction. I had to. That morning when I slammed the door in your face, I wasn't just closing a door on you. I was closing a door on my own humanity. Opening this practice isn't just about helping others. It's about finding the person I was supposed to be. A year later, Richardson & Associates was a memory, but Equal Justice Legal Services had become a model for accessible legal practice across Britain.
Richardson had testified before Parliament about legal aid reform, and his story had inspired other lawyers to reconsider their own practices. The story of Marcus Richardson and Keir Starmer became more than just a tale of discrimination and redemption. It became a catalyst for real change in Britain's legal system. Richardson's transformation proved that even the deepest prejudices could be overcome, and Starmer's graceful response demonstrated the power of using personal adversity to create systemic change. Sometimes the most important moments in our lives come disguised as our worst mistakes. For Marcus Richardson, the morning he turned away Keir Starmer wasn't just the day he nearly lost everything, it was the day he found out who he really wanted to be.